Welcome to BadgerPod NerdCast Two, in which we in which we talk about more nerdy things, and we don't worry too much about it becoming a silly place. So to start this off, I thought I would give a call out or a shout out to Chainsaw Suit, which is a comic, a webcomic, sort of a humorous webcomic, and it came to the attention of Men's Rights Reddit when it did a comic on sexual harassment in conventions, and the final gag panel included an image of some bros handing out harassment pamphlets, and on their little table was the words men's rights. And a bunch of us from Men's Rights Reddit, and possibly also from A Voice for Men, went over to this person's website, and we explained to him that this wouldn't be really what we are about. And strangely enough, he said, well, I'm sorry that I misrepresented you guys. I will take the word men's rights out of my comic, and I will put something else in. And then we thanked him for doing that, and it was all very polite. So it may have been an oversight on his part. So actually, this is sort of a shout out to Chris Straub and his webcomic Chainsaw Suit. If you have some time, take a look and patron this particular person who was really reasonable. You know, that's, I guess, unusual.
Cool. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. We don't often have things that easily handed to us. You know what I mean? We don't usually have such an easy time dealing with people that misrepresent us in the media.
Yeah. No, don't. And it's sort of nice to find one who actually just listens to us and says, you know, this isn't what we're like. Please don't present us in this way, and then proceeds to actually change it. That is really unusual. It was a nice feeling.
It's nice to know that it was unintentional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it probably wasn't completely unintentional. We probably had heard that men's rights activists are basically Cthulhu, except, you know, more misogynist, more misogynist.
No, I mean, the misrepresentation.
No, they're the Eye of Sauron.
It was not intentional. He did not intentionally misrepresent.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, no, he didn't intentionally misrepresent. I'm sure that the misrepresentation that he was working off probably came from someone who was intending to misrepresent. But, yeah, it's good to know that there are people out there who actually will respond.
Yeah, tingly feelings inside.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Now,
fuzzies.
Having said that, there's another comic by Matt Lubchansky, called Not All Men. Recently, feminists have said that it's a cliche to say not all men are like that. So when they say that something like men rape, somebody saying not all men are like that is apparently now totally beyond the pale. For us to say that when they say something bad about men and we say not all men are like that. And apparently we've been doing this for forever, even though I don't recall this phrase ever being used except in the last by them. The phrase that I recall being used is not all feminists are like that, and mostly being used by feminists.
Yeah.
When you describe an aspect of their belief system that they usually all adhere to, like patriarchy, male privilege, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, we have a comic called Not All Men. And apparently, this is a advocate for men's rights who receives the man signal, and somebody must be doing reverse sexism, because men can't be treated to actual sexism. It has to be reverse sexism, not the real sexism, which isn't itself sexist. No. And then comes in the Superman, the superhero, Not All Man, who is apparently the defender of the defended, the lone protector of the protected, and the voice of the voiceful. It's so funny that these people are, like, they're so clueless. I mean, this isn't even something you can really get angry about. it's so ultimately clueless about the actual situation of men. I mean,
it's clueless about themselves too.
Yeah, I mean, we just go through in this episode a lot, or like talking about, or previous episode talking about men who are boys who are killed in Nigeria for attending school, and nobody cares until the girls are kidnapped. And then another episode where we talk about how the World Food Program is no longer giving aid to men, even though men are more likely to die in famine. And then they can go around and say that this is giving voice, or this is defending the defended. How are men defended in any sense of the word?
Yeah.
Have we lost you, Rachel?
No, I'm here. Well, the thing about it is that, I think a lot of these people, when they get their the perceptions of what men's rights or what the men's rights movement is about, it's often, from feminists, and it's just this vastly... it's this skewed idea of what we're about, that we want to put women back in the kitchen, that we're all conservatives, that we all think the same, that we're all men, and that we're all like fedora-wearing, neck-bearded atheists. Well, I mean, I happen to be a filthy atheist, but, Yeah,
we're not...
And I have a neck beard, but it's just one hair. And I pull it out regularly.
Yeah.
That probably doesn't count.
I've got e-balls, but other than that, and they're enormous and black.
E-balls can really be any size that you want.
Yes.
And they can also be bouncy. They can be enormous bouncy e-balls.
Yeah.
But are they upper class, high society e-balls?
I don't know. I guess that depends on whether or not they're shaved.
Are they...
God's gift to e-ballroom notoriety.
People are just so weirded out by this cast. Because already we're talking about giant black balls.
Oh my.
Okay. How many minutes are we?
I'm going to read Jess Kay's review of Not All Men.
Okay.
This is Jess Kay's review. With the ever-growing popularity and notoriety of comics and the culture that surrounds them, it's becoming increasingly common for them to be utilized as a tool for addressing modern social issues. We're seeing more and more social justice warriors utilizing the medium of comics to satirize their opposition. Upon further scrutinization, however, we can see that present in their work are their own biases and prejudices. One such example is a short 6-frame comic written by Matt Lubchansky titled Not All Men. In this short piece, superhero Not All Man is summoned by the man signal when someone is doing reverse sexism. He leaps into action, proclaiming to be the defender of the defended, the protector of the protected, and the voice of the voiceful, crashing in on a woman stating, "I'm just sick of how men..." A couple of notable sentiments include their use of the term reverse sexism. The term reverse sexism is often used to describe sexism against men. The implication is that sexism is something that only happens to women, so men can't genuinely experience it. The implication in the term reverse sexism is inherently sexist. Additionally, Not All Men's proclamation of being the defender of the defended and the protector of the protected makes perfect sense after the implementation of the legislation like the Violence Against Men Act. Oh wait, of course this proclamation being the voice of the voiceful makes perfect sense considering how socially acceptable it is for men to use their voice to discuss issues that affect them and how they never experience censorship in such instances. Oh wait. Finally, the suggestion that not all men are like that as a joke sets an interesting double standard when not all women are like that seems to be the rule. Generalizing men is perfectly acceptable, while generalizing women will be met with extreme condemnation. And of course, Jess Kay hits it right nail straight on the head. What would feminists? I mean, the idea that saying not all men are like that is something unacceptable is amazing. Because that means they're essentially saying that, yes, they believe that patriarchy theory, yes, they believe that male privilege, yes, they believe that rape is actually all men. Like, all men are rapists, all men are abusers, all men benefit from keeping women in a state of fear. Go ahead, Hannah.
Well, feminists just absolutely hate generalizations, except the ones they make. But this whole comic, just looking at this comic, it's essentially a pictorial demand that feminist claims not be contradicted, even when they're not true. Because they know that not all men are rapists. They know that not all men do any of the things that they accuse men of doing. In fact, they know that an infinitesimal minority of men are rapists, because they're the ones that did the research that found that out. But they still have to generalize to the entire gender. And they can't argue if somebody contradicts that. They can't successfully argue that down, because if someone successfully contradicts that, they're right. So instead, they're going to create all these comics. They're going to create any other little argument they can that is more of a shaming tactic and more of a demand that you shut up and stop contradicting them, because they know that what they're saying is not true. And they can't back it up.
Well, yeah. What I find ridiculous is they're using the term reverse sexism. And I find that the people that use that terminology are they're the same kind of people that use the terminology of reverse racism, as if other minorities can never be racist against white people or against each other. It just, it can't ever happen. It's ridiculous. And they're the same people who believe that, men are never raped by women. It just can never happen. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I had someone tell me, who was telling me that, because I think it's ridiculous too, who was saying that, you can't be, they actually said, that you can't be sexist towards men. That's not possible. That it's not systematic. And I'm like, yeah, it is systematic. It's called feminism. What are you talking about?
It's complete bullshit, though. I mean, racism is racism and sexism is sexism. It doesn't matter who it's against. They're saying, you can't be sexist against men because they supposedly hold, by default, a position of power that women do not possess, and that's ridiculous. Even if that were true, you could still be sexist against them.
And then it's partly because feminists will only acknowledge power that they can indicate, they can say they don't have. So they'll acknowledge, CEO positions, they'll acknowledge the power of being holding a political position, but they don't seem to understand that people do recognize that their lobby has power. That when they say jump and Congress in the United States says how high, that's power.
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they don't recognize anything that they don't. Yeah, they really are categorically incapable of recognizing their own power. Where is if men have so much power, why aren't male politicians, running on a platform of men's rights? Why is this so difficult? I mean, it's so easy to say that women are a victim of something, and then, it's like the money just starts flowing. But the instant you say men are in need of something, it stops. And how is that a privileged position to be in, that whenever you have a need, everybody starts to ignore you? It's just, yeah. But anyway, let's move on to the next item. We can do the Frozen discussion or Rick and Morty. Which would you guys like? Which would you guys prefer more?
Rick and Morty.
Rick and Morty. All right, let's go for Rick and Morty. Oh goodness, I have to navigate to where it is.
I've got my Frozen discussion ready.
Here we go. Rick and Morty, overview in episode 7 by Dr. Randomercam. Rick and Morty is what happens when a dispossessed Dan Harmon stomps away from Community, grabs the most warped and disturbing cartoonist he can find on the internet, one Justin Roiland, and they go to Adult Swim, get presumably blackout drunk together, and create a Back to the Future cartoon. The character names are tweaked, as is the family situation, but it's all there. Except they don't travel through time, they travel to alternate dimensions and alien planets. If this is the first you're hearing of Rick and Morty, the nerdgasm you're having right now is quite justified. You cannot possibly know what to expect next from this show. It's based on a webtoon that has been depicting graphic cartoon pedophilia for the 7 years and 250,000 views, in which YouTube has neglected to take it down, but that's nothing. Oh, God, I didn't actually realize that he alluded to that. Okay, that's a bit edgy. They did an episode about a post-apocalyptic gender apartheid in which women were the bad guys, and they got it past the censors. Episode 7, Grazing Gazorpazorp. Morty accidentally impregnates an alien sex bot. Rick travels to the home planet of the sex robot to discover the Gazorpians, an alien race that became a study in artificial selection of sexual dimorphism. For eons, the picturesque females have lived in a futuristic utopia, talking about fashion tips and each other's feelings, while the grotesque males are left to wander the plains, fighting, killing, conquering each other, and inseminating sex robots, which the females collect. Sounds like a chilling vision of things to come, right? But which gender is being lampooned in this case? It's both to a degree, but this is TV we're talking about. Both is progress. Oh, what do you think? Boy, she really dropped a bomb there. I didn't realize that it's based on a webtoon that has been depicting graphic cartoon pedophilia for 7 years. How the hell did that get on YouTube?
I don't know. I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, I'd have to find out for myself, to be honest.
I don't think I can actually take a look at that without going to jail, so I'm just gonna leave that one there.
Well, you know, if they say that that's the case, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they might say that, but it's hard to say.
Yeah, okay. It might just be being really edgy. Plus,
yeah, or somebody might just be, you know, loosely defining it, but I don't know. I mean, if that was the case, they probably never would have gotten on the air. I mean, they have to show, I think, a portfolio at least, don't they? Before they're just like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, make a show for Adult Swim.
Yeah.
But then again, Johan Vasquez ended up making, you know, Invader Zim for Nickelodeon, and he wrote, you know, he drew Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, which is
right.
Pretty fucking edgy.
Yeah,
Edgy.
Yeah, that's
sure was.
Yeah, that's a pretty disturbing comic. Some of it I just don't even remember.
It's a very, very dark sense of humor. It's
I know.
I haven't read that in so long.
Yeah. Explodey.
Yeah, I remember it being pretty dark, disturbing.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Rick and Morty, it is pretty gross on the whole.
I haven't seen it, but that's gonna be on my to-do list now.
Has anyone seen what is it called? Fritz the Cat?
No, but I've heard things about it.
I tried to watch that and I had to stop. I was like, oh, I can't.
No, we can't.
I could probably make it through. I mean, it's you
know, it's not that. I don't think it's that bad now. I mean,
probably not. It's probably not as bad because I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff. I've been to Meet the Feebles, and if you haven't seen that, it's time.
No.
I had a laugh. I think she saw it.
No.
Peter Jackson before he started doing like serious stuff, and he got a budget. It's fantastic. Where else can you see like a a cow fucking a wadabug? It was great.
Chris fucking at Siamese, and oh my god, its depiction of goddamn drugs. I don't think watching human beings shoot up wasn't as intense and raw as watching a goddamn felt frog shoot up heroin. That was the most disturbing. Oh God, no! I think I'm having flashbacks. Oh, it's horrible.
Well, and also while they were doing that to the Wait-A-Bug, wasn't it? Yeah, it was being filmed and sold as pornography. They were selling pornography in the back of the theater. It was great. Wasn't there like just a dirty mattress back there and chains on the wall? That takes me back.
Oh crap! Okay, all right. Back to the topic of Rick and Morty. Did you guys watch this particular episode where they go to this Gazorp?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, when I watched it, I'm like, I don't know if Mike told me that, it was interesting that it was the women who sort of constructed this utopia when usually it's seen, it's the men who do it. But I don't know. It's like, I don't know if it's completely accurate.
The drama episode is probably closer to what would actually happen.
Yeah,
you remember with the Amazon women, and they were sitting there, and it was a really scathing just parody of everything that feminism says. Like, they were explaining about women's basketball, and then they were just kind of giggling, and then they're talking about women in stand-up comedy. And I gotta be honest, it's kind of true. They often don't take as many chances, and when they do, they just get a lot of shit for it. It's usually really, really safe kind of things, you know what I'm saying? And it's just sort of that kind of,
Not dirty mattresses with chains on the wall and illusions.
Yeah, that's my kind of jokes right there.
Yeah.
And also dolphins, fucking each other in the head, in the blowhole.
Well, that's what they do, Dolphins.
Well, yeah.
They're very aggressive creatures. They definitely like their rape.
Well, that's probably the only time that animals just willfully have sex in the nose.
Oh my God.
Whoa!
I guess that would be a nose job.
Always smiling. You have to wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found it weird.
He's fucking him in the head. It's like, I love you, Dave, but I can't breathe.
I can't breathe. Get your penis out of my nose. Okay. Now, with that, do you want to go to the Frozen review?
No, there's not much in the way of dolphin rape, but yeah.
Why don't you read your review and we'll discuss it.
Yeah, my review is called The Problem with Frozen. Frozen has been a massive success. It won both Best Picture and Best Original Song at the 2014 Academy Awards. There's just one problem. The story has a terrible moral. I think the intended moral was something along the lines of sisterly love and that love conquers all. However, the message never comes across very strong because the sisters only spend like 5 minutes together throughout the entire movie. Their relationship is practically non-existent. Despite the fact that Anna is the main character, Elsa is the one that people gravitate to more. For me, this is problematic because she's a terrible role model. Sure, nobody's perfect, but Elsa is irresponsible and selfish. In fact, in the earlier scripts, she was supposed to be the villain, and for good reason, because Elsa consistently flees responsibility. And when the moment finally came for her to grow up and handle things like an adult, she runs away. Not only does she run away, but at no point does she apologize for anything. Anna travels for miles, looking for her in freezing temperatures. Yet when she finally gets there, Elsa tells her not only is she not going back, but that Anna needs to go back and clean up her mess. Because of course Elsa supposedly knows what's best for Anna and the kingdom after being a shut-in. She sends an ice giant after Anna and nearly kills her. But does Elsa care? Nope. Basically, women should never have to take responsibility for anything in a Disney film. In fact, Elsa is only okay with being queen after Anna saves her life and Elsa saves hers. So the moral of the story is this. It's okay to throw off all responsibility and then make other people clean up after you. This is why Elsa's character resonated so greatly with audiences, because she is the kind of liberated woman that is popular in the media, yet they never focus on how the actions of these kinds of women hurt other people. A woman fucks over her sister, nearly kills everyone, never apologizes, but it's okay because love conquers all, and girl power. And there we go.
Yeah, pretty much. I was thinking about that one when I was watching it. I did enjoy it quite a bit, but you're right. There are some subtle messages that are very problematic with that particular movie. Does anyone else want to jump in? Hannah, Crystal, come on.
Yeah, somebody jump in.
Not watched the movie.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, well, never mind. You're dead to us.
The positive parts of the movie, the things I think people most like about it is the music.
Yeah.
And that's, what sort of does it for people, because it's sort of the comeback of the Disney musical. Because it wasn't like Tangled that had like 2 songs. I think they had, 5 songs? Which makes it, a Disney musical across the board.
Yeah. It's, I enjoyed it. I really love animation, and I love the technical proficiency of it. And I sort of like the characters quite a bit, but sometimes you just turn off your brain and you just enjoy something. You don't think about what's actually being said. Anya was very responsible, but you're right. Ilsa was just complete.
Yeah.
At no point did she step up and say, "I need to take responsibility." She literally had to be dragged into it.
Yeah, and it was not until she was forced to see how much she hurts everybody by doing her own thing that she finally decided, okay, you know what, I'm gonna step up to the plate and be queen like I was supposed to be.
Yeah.
It takes her sister becoming ice for her to see, well, shit, maybe I need to go handle things that I was supposed to.
Right.
Exactly. And it is a really silly message. I'm surprised. Has there been any sort of feminist commentary on Frozen at all?
They tend to actually be really, really positive about it because, of course, girl power and, oh, good for her, finally being herself after all of these years. But that's the thing. There was nothing really keeping her from really being herself. In fact, it was doing that completely screwed over everything. Had she come out sooner and stopped being passive and said, you know what, I don't think I should just, be locked up all the time, all of this would have come to a head sooner before she had to have a damn coronation at 17 or something.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem is I don't think people thought this thing through, and I get the feeling
actually, I looked at early drafts of the film early on, early sketches, and it would have been a very, very different movie. They had a very, very different movie planned, but test audiences did not respond well to them. They did not respond well to the idea of Elsa being a villain. I guess, I don't know why. I think it was probably because she was her sister, and there were actually a ton of, I think there was several different drafts. I think one was going more towards the sort of native aspect of that particular area, of the indigenous people and things like that. And other versions started shifting onto their old crutch of, fuck, let's make it a princess.
So, what was the original going to be more like?
It was based on it's supposed to be based around the original Hans Christian Andersen story, The Snow Queen.
Oh.
Yeah, that was it's loosely based on it, and it's almost like if you know anything about Studio Ghibli, it's like their kind of loose interpretation of source material, because they often take a work or a book or something and then do a really, really loose interpretation of it, but they do it so well that nobody cares. Yeah. But I don't necessarily feel that way about Frozen. I don't think that they really took such chances or such risks that were beneficial enough to really make up for where they deviated.
Yeah.
Well, what was the original plot going to be like?
I think the original story of, I think, the Snow Queen is the story of, I think, two friends that get lost out in the snow, and they come upon this Snow Queen, and I think the girl gets hurt, and the boy ends up with, I think, a frozen shard in his heart, and I think only love can save him. And even that would kind of be a better sort of message than what happened in Frozen, because I understand, I think, that they were trying to sort of capture depression in Frozen, because, Elsa felt like she was kind of sort of a monster, and that she can't really, she's afraid of hurting people, but isn't that what we're constantly telling men? Like, you're insanely powerful, and you're really, really dangerous. And, you just gotta keep everything under control, or you might hurt somebody.
Right.
That's an interesting insight.
Yeah.
But in their case, we also tell them to keep responsibility, right?
Yeah, but
we
expect more. We expect more of men. We expect to, even in The Lion King, the story was about, you fucked off in the jungle for a while, and now it's time for you to come back and be the king and take the responsibility and take back your birthright and all this stuff.
Right.
But at no point is Elsa really convinced that she needs to come back. She gets she's dragged back there by Hans and all these other fucks that have their own ends and their own plans for what should happen to the kingdom and who should be queen and who should rule it. That's who drags her back. She's dragged back there in chains. If she left her own places, she would have rather stayed up in the frozen castle and possibly starved to death, because let's be honest, she's got no survival skills, then come back where she's got a castle full of food and, all of these great things. She'd rather, just stay out there and say, well, no, screw responsibility. I'm free for once in my life, and I haven't really planned this out, but go.
Right.
Well, that's a good point. And when Simba came back from his sojourn away from responsibility, he actually really had to fight to assume his place. Whereas, what the hell did Elsa do?
She realized that the power to save everyone was inside her all along. And, finally realized that, oh, wow, I totally hurt my sister. And think about this for a second. She sent an ice giant to remove them from the castle, and it nearly killed them. Yeah. And did she apologize at any point, even at the end of the movie? Did she ever say, Anna, I'm sorry that I, totally freaked out and messed up everything? No, that is never uttered once. I actually watched the end of it before this conversation. And not once, at any time, should she ever say, I'm sorry, I, froze the kingdom by mistake, that I nearly killed you with an ice giant, and that I shot ice into your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, and they make her out to be, she's the baby. She may be the oldest one, but she's the baby throughout. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
And, well, the problem that I find with these characters, and actually I found it with Brave too, maybe a little less. But the problem is that if you can't, with female characters, with female main characters, is you can't really make them suffer. At least when you're not writing a mainstream story. And if your protagonist doesn't suffer for their goal, you don't give a shit. Mm-hmm. And it's like, how did Elsa suffer? I mean, what should have happened in her story is that she had to suffer to make things right again. And she had to go through significant doubt and pain to actually regain her kingdom and to help everybody who she had abandoned on her way, or, in her pursuit of whatever it was she was pursuing. But that's not what happened. So who gives it? Like, at the end of the day, you don't really care. You don't really care about women's story arcs. Why should you? I mean, nothing really happens. They don't learn anything. They don't suffer. They don't sacrifice. Yeah, you're just a little bit low there. It's hard to hear when you're talking, but go ahead, Crystal.
Oh, am I?
Yeah.
I tried raising. Okay. Yeah, you're right. She doesn't sacrifice. She goes from one castle to another castle, and she's still in, with a crown. I think she has a different crown, or maybe not. I don't know. And then she has this glamorous clothing. So, yes, she doesn't sacrifice anything. She's still living in full luxury. So, yeah, it's not like she goes out into a hut and you see her, like, scrounging, and she has to hunt and try and kill and do things. And yeah.
No, it's just and that's really what makes the stories, like, it's almost impossible to watch a female main character because in mainstream media you cannot make them suffer.
Yeah, and that's it almost sounds like the way you guys are describing it almost sounds like a feminized remake of the Wizard of Oz with magic and stuff. It is the same thing where basically Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz didn't want to live the life that was laid out before her, and she ran away from home. Only difference was Dorothy did actually have to have courage, and she had to go through hardship, and she had to chase down her ability to go back. She had to realize she wanted to go back. The whole thing of the main character of this story you guys are talking about, realizing that she had the power all along. That was right out of the Wizard of Oz, and her running away from home and everything. That was the same thing. It's the same story. It's just the light, fluffy bunny feminist version.
The funny thing about that is that Elsa is actually played by Idina Menzel, who plays Elphaba in Wicked. So she plays the Wicked Witch of the West in Wicked, in a story where that story arc is exactly the same as Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. And that's the funny thing. But I mean, feminists should be angry. Women should be angry at this kind of thing, because here we have the potential to really do a story about real women being actually strong and taking charge and handling things. And, people are just easily satisfied with this.
Yeah, but the reality is that and I've read Wicked. It's a really good book. Elphaba, is it Elphaba or Elphaba?
I think it's Elphaba.
Elphaba. Okay, Elphaba. So I got it wrong completely. Elphaba really freaking suffered in that book, and you cared about what happened to her because of it. It's something that I watched. If you've ever watched Red Letter Media, analyzing why the Clone Wars were complete crap. What you do is, when you have a protagonist, you get a protagonist, and then you just shit on them, and people care because it's like you just do bad things to them, and people care. They want to see them succeed because they've suffered so much. And the reason why we don't see women as nobody wants to watch a woman in Hollywood as a main character is because they won't let them suffer. Meaning, as soon as a woman trots on the scene as a main character, you know that she's not going to get something blown off or like an arm blown off. You know that she's not really going to have to deal with some really difficult decisions and make some really deep sacrifices. So her story is made much more bland and one-dimensional. Whereas with the guys, you never know. I mean, they may not even kill the main male protagonist. He may not even survive to the end. There's always that sense of danger and threat with a male protagonist, because you know that they will go balls to the walls with what he's going to sacrifice and suffer, because he's a man. And we'll tolerate watching that. And that makes it interesting. Whereas a woman, because they need to be coddled and cosseted and not too edgy, you know, don't make the suffering too edgy. You know that the stories, it's going to be proportionately less interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only movie that I can think of, or Disney movie, not official movie, not sequel, that actually features a woman straight up dying, who is a main character, is Hercules. But she doesn't stay dead long. He goes down to the depths of hell to get her back. He goes down to Hades and gets her back, and swims through like a river of death to get to her. Mm-hmm. And of course he becomes like a god just by that very act of sacrificing himself, self-sacrifice. But that's the only time I think I've ever seen a woman like straight up die in a Disney film. I mean, can you except for, Bambi's mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bambi's mom. But she's not really a woman. She's like a female deer, but...
Female deer don't count.
I don't know. Do they? But, you know, that's...
Maybe.
When that's the amount of women that actually die or suffer, you know, anything notable in a Disney film, you really have to seriously think on what you're doing.
Well, it may just be cultural constructs, too.
It could be.
Won't
it could
accept
be.
it.
And I understand that they're kids' films, but, you know, there are, like, Pixar movies. I mean, you actually had the male character's main character's wife dying up, and that just completely destroyed the audience. But it's good. It's one of the few times that they've actually had the balls to have that sort of tearjerker moment. They don't have that anymore, where you just get emotionally involved.
Well, the other thing that I find, it's not just the limitation on how much they're willing to allow women to sacrifice or suffer, but there also seems to be this incredible limitation on how much conflict they will allow depicted in a relationship between two women.
Yeah.
Like, they won't allow women to be mortal enemies or even disagree strongly.
That brings to mind that feminist test. I can't think of the name of it.
The Bechdel test.
Yeah, the one where you have to have two or more women in a film, and they have to talk to each other about something other than men, or something other than relationships or something. It's a ridiculous criteria for, you know, I won't watch a film unless it passes this, because there are things that happen in the world that do not involve women's egos.
When was the last time you saw two women just straight up fighting in a movie? I think there are a couple that I can think of, but it's usually not always handled particularly well. I think the last time I saw two women fighting in a movie that wasn't complete garbage was probably, well, I'm thinking of, Bridesmaids and Willow. No, think of...
Yeah.
I want to see a movie where two women reenact the fight scene from They Live.
I haven't seen that one.
You haven't seen They...
Okay,
well, it's an old movie. The fight scene from They Live is this classic meme. They Live was that starred a pro wrestler named Roddy Piper. You can tell I'm getting tired now, but and he did a couple of really, really B-grade movies, and the premise of They Live was that there were aliens in the world that had taken over the world and they controlled the world, but nobody knew because they disguised themselves, so they looked just like humans, and they didn't disguise themselves with costumes or morphing or whatever. They bent the light so that you saw a human and instead of an alien face. And they had a system of advertising that, you know, you'd look up and you might see an ad for Time magazine, but the aliens would see an important communication on the billboard that you couldn't see because you didn't have their vision. And he came across these sunglasses that let him see the aliens.
Yeah.
And
I've seen a couple. fits that.
Yes, and there's this scene where they find out that he has the glasses and he can see the aliens, and he's telling people about the aliens, and they're going to be discovered, and they don't want to be discovered, and they chase him, and he gets into a fight with one of them. And it's just this, it's an incredibly extended fight scene because the star of the movie is a pro wrestler. You cannot have a pro wrestler star in a movie and not have an extended fight scene. But it's just really a long, drawn-out and extended... It's just this epic, pro wrestling boxing match. And, like, South Park did a parody of it. There's been other artists that have parodied it, but South Park did a parody of it.
The cripple fight episode, was that it? Oh my gosh!
A parody of the fight scene from They Live. And I would love to see a movie where two women do that. They do their rendition of that fight scene. Because it would just freak the audience out. Everybody that didn't know the meme would be like, oh my god, this is terrible. How can you have this?
Yeah. You remember the fight scene? Even though they never came across each other, I think there was actually blood at one point, and they were just getting thrown up against the walls and stuff, and you're like...
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's the scene.
Scared, you're like, oh my gosh. And are they going to sacrifice the baby? Are they
but you must now watch that movie. And then you have to hunt down the other one, Hell Comes to Frogtown.
Okay, I don't even know any of these references, so I'm just gonna barge in and rain on your parade. But Bechdel, the Bechdel test, Bechdel, whatever, Betchfuck.
The bitch fuck test.
The Betchfuck test. That's what it is from now on. The Betchfuck test.
The bitch fuck test.
The Boko fuck test. Okay, all right, there you go.
Bench fuck test.
If you want works to regularly defy that and actually pass the test, you have to have women who hate each other's guts, who absolutely are willing to kill each other over issues, political issues, differences of opinion, different moralities. You have to have a moral contrast between two women is just as stark as you can see the moral contrast between two men in Hollywood videos. And you also have to, the people writing this have to allow women to suffer and sacrifice as much as men. And then you will create works that consistently pass the buckfuck test. I'm just going to call it the buckfuck test. So, it's that if you do that, you will consistently find works that pass the test because these women will be able to talk, or rather shout at each other, lots of stuff about morality, about political ends, about intrigue, about just wanting to beat the crap out of each other or work together to achieve some aim. If you continue to swaddle female characters in cotton, you will never pass this test. So you have to actually challenge this idea that women aren't expendable in service for their ideals and their principles. Otherwise, they'll have goddamn nothing to talk about to each other that's worth listening to, that doesn't involve a man.
You guys need to watch every Studio Ghibli film then.
Yeah.
They don't get appreciated enough. They really don't.
Well, I love Studio Ghibli. We should talk about it next time, maybe.
Yeah.
But Hannah's tired, and we'll do more YouTube videos next time, and maybe Studio Ghibli as well.
Cool.
But I think. Are we ready? Are we ready to call it a day?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Charlie.
Okay, you guys are getting.
What's this game? It's a Leopleurodon, Charlie. A magic Leopleurodon.
Ring ring.
Hello.
Hello. Ring ring.
Hello.
The bad connection.
Ring ring. You have a bad connection.
All right. Okay. Good night. This is the end of the NerdCast.
Bye.
I have no clue what these women are talking about.
It's okay. Starfish really loves you.
Yes. It's adorable. No,
I suppose that means you also don't know Carl that kills people. people, false people, false people, false people, false people.